Welcome to the TAR News Podcast, where truth always reigns. I'm here with my friends, the political memester and Darth Brandybuck. As always, this is the Tac Racc. Today, we're going to be talking about SHOT Show that happened last week. There was a lot of really interesting things that came out of the show, and I'm really excited to kind of dig in and see, what's kind of the innovative stuff and what stuff is kind of like, okay, why did they do this? Before we get started, guys, how are we doing today?
Doing pretty darn good. I'm about to get ready to go on a cruise this next week, so looking forward to that. But I am excited to talk about some cool new guns first.
I'm doing pretty good myself. The weather's starting to warm up over here, so we're all very excited about that. Not to mention that, according to the groundhog, a spring is going to be coming early this year.
That's
Yeah,
right. I remember seeing that video earlier today of what's his name?
Punxsutawney Phil.
Puxatawny Phil. That's right.
We'll see how that works out. He's lied so many times before.
And people say Americans have no culture.
Right? This is our culture. All right. Well, without further ado, guys, let's get started. Few topics to talk about. The first one, it's something that I saw a little bit last year. This year, it's been I feel like a lot more prevalent. And that's kind of the emergence of the tactical lever gun, or just the lever gun in general. You're starting to see companies from even like budget brands, well, Winchester is now what I consider a budget brand, going up. Making these lever guns that are kind of made for the modern market. What are your guys' thoughts on these, and should we be taking these seriously?
Well, I am personally under the belief of lever guns being a good alternative to something like an AR-15 in the right operation, in the right context. We were talking about in our last episode how some people, depending on where they live or whatever situation, may not have the ability to have an AR-15. They may not like the AR-15. So, in that respect, I understand the appeal of a more tactical style lever action or a magazine fed lever action. Obviously, they do look a little goofy, but there's also a sort of, in my opinion, a sort of kind of cool appeal to them at the same time. Um, so, I mean, yeah, I embrace them. Are they for everybody? No. Are they better than other things out there? It depends, but I'm not mad at it.
That's a very interesting take. I personally think that all these new lever action rifles seem to be just a big fad that's going on. From what I heard about it, it's very reliable, but at the same time, if you're going to be putting the money in to get a brand new bolt action rifle, not a bolt action, sorry, but a lever action rifle, you might as well just go up with the brand new AR-15. They're far more reliable, in my opinion. And frankly, even though that the saying is that it's the training that counts rather than the equipment, I mean that saying is true. But if you have equal training with an AR-15, you're still going to be running around a whole lot better than anybody with a bolt action rifle or a lever action rifle. So might as well just spend the extra couple $100 and go with the AR-15.
I mean, I'm a little bit in the middle on this. Like, I do think, especially having worked in the firearms industry, selling these to people, with the exception of like Henry 22s, those sat around a little bit, but they would still sell. But anything else in lever action that is a decently big caliber, or it's like it's like a Marlin, either you couldn't find those, or they were gone in like a couple days after we got them. I think the hype is definitely there. It probably started when Yellowstone came out. That's what I always kind of attribute it to. The most recent season of that show makes me think otherwise, because God, that season sucked. That show is a shatter of what it used to be. But I think they're definitely what it went from interest to genuine. Okay, this is an attainable thing we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think companies did kind of come down on price a little bit to kind of satisfy that market. But I think now, especially, with the stuff going on in California, with that state's basically trying to ban AR-15s. There's a lot of other states that are kind of following suit. Like for instance, look at New York. They have basically the law where you can't have a removable magazine on a gun. Well, if you have an AR-15, you have to like unhinge the entire top receiver, or the the upper of the gun, and load your magazine. Well, with a lever gun, you just feed the tube. You know, there's nothing like a good angry tube in a firefight. You know what I mean? So I think in some like as I sit here in the Midwest in very two-way friendly states, I think it's a bit of a fad. But if I was in like New York or California, like I would be all about the cowboy revolution
Yeah.
with these guns. We've already seen. There's been a lot of memes about it. Even like people are kind of like, "Huh, California's banning high capacity magazines. They're making it so you can't have removable magazines. Are we getting cowboy guns forced upon us? You know?
Secret cowboy conspiracy in California.
Yeah,
They're outlawing semi-auto guns. They're making everybody stop driving cars.
exactly.
There's a lesser police presence, so people are going to have to resort to street justice.
Like oh yeah, it's all coming together. So
And yeah,
yeah,
that's kind of what I was saying too. Is like for someone who lives in a place where you have access to better options, AR-15s, and so on.
yeah.
Yeah, the lever action is kind of a gimmick, but for like you were saying, someone who lives in New York, someone who lives in California, it's a good enough alternative that I get it.
Like that being said, don't like any gun law is is unconstitutional. But if you gotta live with it and you can't move, I mean, there's worse things you
Yeah.
could do than have a lever gun.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of the gun manufacturers that give options to people who don't have many. Now that said, some of the new lever guns announced this year are a little goofy.
Oh, I mean, I don't. One of the ones that had me scratching my head. There's a couple. I think there's a couple I think are really good new additions. I think Smith and Wesson's new offering, I think it was the 1854. Yeah, the 1854. I think that's a really favorable thing to have
Mm-hmm.
on the market. Say what you will about Smith and Wesson, but at the very least, their guns are across the board pretty good quality.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's been Smith and Wessons that are like, okay, there's a little plastic, I don't like the trigger, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, they pretty much universally work. I will give that company that. And I think them getting into the lever gun gang, especially looks like the first is going to be a 44.
Mm-hmm.
That's right in the niche that like Rossi has been kind of filling lately. We've seen a couple other companies kind of get into that kind of pistol caliber lever gun market. But I'm really excited about that Smith and Wesson gun. I won't talk too much more about other ones that I want you guys to be able to talk about these
Yeah.
a little bit, but that's one that I saw that I was like, okay, that's good. I like
Yeah,
this.
and I will say I got to admire them because the 1854 it still maintains a good enough classic, cowboy lever action look, but also has enough modernized additions to it to where it's not an old fashioned collector's piece. It's something that has a little bit more utility with, it's got a threaded barrel, it's got a small amount of pick rail on top to put an optic. It comes in plastic and wood. So I appreciate that they are still keeping the classic look for people who like that, but also making it modernized enough to be practical.
I mean, they may be practical, but I'm not sure if you guys actually looked at the prices for these things. They're running for around $1,200 up to around $3,500.
For some of those guns, I think that's a little bit much. For instance, like some of your like U-Birdie U-Birdies are good. Don't get me wrong, but you're paying
Hmm.
a little bit for like you're paying for blued parts and stuff like that. They
Mm-hmm.
just put out a Hunter version of their lever gun with a pick rail on top for optics. But I mean, if you're looking at like a Smith and Wesson or like a Marlin is a good example too. Marlins are about I can't
About
remember exactly.
1,500
They're
normally.
they're about 1,500. Having handled one of those it was funny when I worked at the gun shop I worked at. Okay, from the time I started there onwards, we always had demand for Marlins, and I could never get someone one. And finally, I managed to hook someone up with one like right before I left, and it came in like 2 days before I split like my last day at that job. And I can wholeheartedly say that $1,500 is not an outlandish price for that gun,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of the function and the fit and finish. I mean, putting it into perspective, yeah, that's a lot for a fairly flagship lever gun. That's Daniel Defense. That's
Yeah.
Black Rain money, for a gun like that. But at the very least, at least I'm not saying all these because I think you do have a point. I think some of these companies are overcharging to kind of
Mm-hmm.
get in on this trend. But I think at least in some cases that is absolutely a warranted price for
Yeah.
what you're getting. But
Especially
I
with
do I do
Marlin.
agree. Yeah, especially with Marlin.
Because like not that Winchesters or Smith and Wessons are bad per se, but a good chunk of that price honestly is the name, because it says Winchester on the side of the gun, because it says Smith and Wesson on the side of a gun.
Mhm.
And
I think
Marlin's a well established brand that's been around too, but
they're
they're
a leader now.
yeah.
Now we're talking about all these fancy old Western guns. Did you guys see the new Colt Blue Python?
I did see that.
I did.
I didn't
Yeah.
get pulled out, but I did see that. um, that is, I think that's a really the thing with pythons. And once again, kind of reverting back to my old shop, we would sell pythons pretty reliably. But I always had people gravitating towards like the Smith and Wesson like
Mm-hmm.
police models and stuff like that had that kind of that look. And yeah, I'm very excited that they brought that back. Or I think those used to be a thing. I swear to God I've seen those before. But like they brought it back, right?
Yeah, they brought it back a couple years ago. I think just this year is
Yeah, it's like the new
Hmm.
blued
a new
version.
finish or something. Yeah, but no,
Yeah.
the Python's been back for a little while.
Well, yeah. I meant like the finish though.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, I'm very excited about that. I think that's going to be awesome.
I will say just one last thing about lever actions. We were talking about Marlin. Their new what's their new line called? Is it the Dark? Yeah, the Marlin Dark line. That's kind of the polar opposite of the Smith and Wesson, because it's got all polymer, M-lock rails, the whole shebang, which is like on a lever gun. It's kind of goofy, personally, in my opinion.
I mean, people saw Jurassic Park and they're like, you know what, I took that personally. They want
Yeah.
to hunt T Rexes, I guess.
Hi,
They're kind
I'm
of
some
cool.
people.
I think that's going to be something that, who knows, maybe it'll play out and, next year we'll be into pump action rifles to kind of cater to those
Yeah,
states. Who knows?
let's bring the pump action
Um,
rifles back.
well, speaking of that, I cannot find it for the life of me. I know someone did this. But I've seen a lot more rifles in like that kind of straight pull action
Hmm.
that those like I can't remember the surplus Swiss rifles that I was thinking about buying for like a year
Yeah,
until I realized
someone
I saw it.
someone actually announced a new one this shot show. Who was it? I want to say it was maybe
I gotta find it
Bergara.
now.
Yeah,
Beretta did.
was it
It was Beretta.
Beretta? Okay.
Yeah, the Beretta Impulse. It's kind of a match rifle. It looks like it's kind of along the lines of like a precision, like ultra precision 22. It's in 22, I believe. Um, the point I wanted to make though is like last year, I would have never dreamed that we'd see something like that get traction at Shot Show, and this year it's like, oh, this is the thing.
Yeah.
Um, what I see kind of happening though is, what if it's not, lever guns, and obviously bolt guns have been around forever. There was a ton that were released, and we might talk about a few later, but these alternative actions on guns that are kind of
Hmm.
I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of, just because that so many of these states are like, oh, semi-automatics are bad, let's try to figure out something else.
Everyone's trying to
I
come up with a loophole.
Yeah, I figured it'd be worth bringing up though, because like you just didn't see this, a little while ago, and those I think it's partly because those surplus guns are becoming so popular that a lot of people have gotten exposure
Hmm.
to that straight pull action. I mean, I can't go to Bass Pro Shop without seeing those anymore. There's like millions of them in the gun library. Because my Bass Pro Shop used to be Cabela's, Rip Cabela's. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Once again, I think we're just going to definitely see a lot more alternative actions kind of coming into play,
Yeah.
whether
Hmm.
it be lever guns or not.
I mean, I think that's a good point too, because with so many guns out there, I mean, there's obviously with every SHOT Show, there's a bajillion new guns announced, and so in order for the manufacturers to have an edge, they got to think of something innovative, something that people haven't seen as much. And yeah, like you're saying, I think straight pull bolts are kind of going to be the thing for the next few years, probably.
It might be. Who knows? I might be like. Here's what's kind of funny about SHOT Show. I noticed last year. I remember SHOT Show happened. I saw like a few, and this will bring us into our next topic. Actually, I promise I'm not just yapping. I remember last year I saw a bunch of 2011s, and I went to my boss like that Monday, and I was like Robert, listen, I know you're kind of having me start helping to kind of decide what we're ordering. We need to start ordering 2011s because that's going to be like the next big thing. And he's like, I don't know, we'll see. And they were definitely noteworthy, but the problem was last year, I think, was there was a lot of 2011s that were still, outlandishly expensive.
Yeah.
Once again, we're kind of getting that practicality versus price because, like, objectively, the 2011 platform is a great platform. All metal, 9mm double stack. It's like having a heavy Glock. It's great. Police departments are starting to carry staccatos for a reason. Regardless, though, last year didn't really catch on. Like, they were just kind of around. This year, though, I've seen a bunch of not only 2011s but also kind of modernized 1911s.
Yeah.
We've been seeing a lot of work being done to kind of make these guns relevant again, and I wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on that because I think this is a really compelling thing for the industry.
Yeah. Well, I personally am not a big fan of striker fireds. Just it's a personal thing. I like having a hammer on my handguns. And back in 2011, when it was 100 years for the 1911, there was all kinds of new 1911s popping out. It was it seems like everyone was making a new 1911, and then it just kind of fell off. It was weird. So yeah, I am very thankful that there has been a resurgence in 1911s, and especially double stack 2011 style pistols. So. But yeah, like you were saying, the price is been a big roadblock for a lot of people. So I appreciate that some more people are making more approachable options.
I don't want to just keep on talking.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I don't have much to add. The only things that I were really seeing from the show were not gun related, like some of the gear.
Okay, we can hit that up later.
Yeah, we'll hit that in a minute, but I want you guys to talk about that.
You're good. No, yeah, we can pop.
Well, who's the who announced a 2011 this year?
So there was a couple that were kind of like there's been a couple that were soft launched a little bit, and then they were like kind of fully rolled out for SHOT Show. T-Sauce has one that came out that I'm actually pretty excited about. That one looks really solid.
Oracle Arms, they've got one. The new Oracle Arms one looks like a gun out of Cyberpunk or something.
Yeah. Sorry, I gotta pull up. I know Gerson is gonna have some coming out. Gerson, if you guys aren't familiar, they're a company out of for our listeners. They're a company out of Turkey. They've been making a lot of really decent guns over the last few years. Would I say they were on par with companies like SAR or Canik? I wouldn't necessarily say so. Which, sidebar, I really wish SAR would have released some stuff this year. They released a couple pistols last year, and they've just I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
I haven't heard much about them. I've been really disappointed because I love that company. Anyways, back on topic. That was my ADD kicking in. The point is, though, we're seeing some of these Turkish companies releasing some really competitively priced and now well-built guns. It used to be where you would only really see, like as I said, SAR or Canik really making these good quality, what I would consider good quality guns. And now we have T-Sauce and we have Gerson coming in. They're like, hey, well, let me show you what I can do. And they did some good work. I think another one to mention too is Rock Island. They've had a few out already, so that's not necessarily new news. But they also just released another striker. It's a striker fire, but they did release kind of it's like a modernized kind of CZ75 looking gun, but it's striker fire. It's like a little bit Glock, a little bit CZ75 looking. It's very futuristic and sleek. I like it.
I don't think I heard of that one.
Yeah,
I did see the new is it Military Arms Corporation, the MAC. MAC.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
Theirs is pretty clean looking. I mean, it's pretty simple, but
yeah, it's the RIA 5.0.
Oh yes, okay. I did hear about that one.
Like a nylon lower.
There it is. Yeah.
Very small metal upper. It's pretty sweet looking. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of looks like one of those match guns that we've been seeing a lot more out of CZ, but it's like a little more.
Yeah.
For the everyman rather than the tactical.
I don't know, $2,000.
Yeah, they're expensive. Don't get me wrong, man.
It's not very everyman. You know what one did what one did kind of catch my attention was the new Daniel Defense H9. That one's a pretty clean. That's a pretty clean looking gun, I will admit.
I think that's going to be something we're going to be seeing a lot more of. Is these rifle companies kind of starting to put out like Stoeger is a great success.
Yeah,
and it's my buddy Chris at Stoeger. They've been making. It kind of started off as Glock Gen 3 clones for a while, and now they've kind of started doing their own thing a little bit more. But yeah, that Daniel Defense pistol, that's going to be really. I'm going to be really interested to see how reliable it is at first. I'm sure it'll be fine, but I think. And take this knowing that I am not the biggest fan of Daniel Defense. I've had Daniel Defense's Valen customers that I've sold those guns to, and I didn't recommend them to them. They bought them because they wanted the Daniel Defense. But that company has a lot of resources, and I think we're going to see some pretty interesting stuff from them in the future, especially with pistols. So that's pretty cool to see. The next thing that I've been seeing, especially a lot this year, and I was kind of surprised about this because I have been very much of the mind of, if you're carrying a pistol, and this is always the advice I give people, if you're carrying a pistol, you want stopping power almost above all else. Like, yeah, you can shoot, you can defend yourself as much as you want, but you want to be able to stop that threat as it comes. The industry seems to not really agree with me, because this year I've been seeing a lot, and I'm not just like being dramatic. I've seen a lot of small caliber pistols coming to the market, not just for like range, but also, I mean, even in like a carry size.
You mean in like 22 LR pistols?
Yeah, like 22s. We've seen a couple more 5.7s come out. In fact, the TSIS 5.7, it's actually a little smaller than like a normal 5.7. It looks a little smaller than a normal 5.7. It looks more like a normal carry gun. Which, by the way, TSIS releasing a 5.7, like, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, everyone's jumping on the 5.7 game.
Which, okay, like sidebar, I don't really get, because, like, I get it's a cool caliber. I know. I get why people like it. Like, let me backtrack. I get why people like it, but it's not a good objectively caliber to carry in a pistol. Yeah, you can take it to the range all you want, but, like, it doesn't do anything that like 17 HMR or 22 Magnum really can't do. You know what I mean?
You watched the new Garen Thumb video, didn't you?
I did. and listen, I know people are pissed off at Garen Thumb right now, but he had a point.
Yeah.
When you're paying $1 a round for that round, and they come in boxes of 50, so it's $50 a pop for a box, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
If that thing isn't filing my taxes and doing my grocery shopping for me for $1 a round, I don't want it. You know what I mean? It's
That's
like,
fair.
And there's a reason I keep my 300 blackout when it's that price. It's because I love that caliber. It actually does what it needs to do. I just don't see the utility in a 5.7. I really don't. That's been a huge caliber this year, and I just don't see it. I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree.
I personally have never actually shot a 5.7. I have very little experience with them, so I couldn't really comment one way or the other. Now, that said, there is a 5.7 that did catch my attention this year, but we can get to that later. Let's talk about some other stuff first.
Let's get there now.
Okay, in my personal opinion, Palmetto State Armory stole the show this year. They've got so many great ideas. I really applaud them for having gone from basically just a third-party manufacturer for aftermarket parts to like full-on gun manufacturers in a relatively short amount of time. And they are probably one of the best examples of a company listening to the customers of what they want. So hats off to PSA this year. That's all I'll say first.
Yeah, no, I really think they. I mean, you could argue they won Shot Show this year.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with PSA. I mean, I get they have little issues. I've been a PSA owner for about 3 years now. I have my 300 blackout build that I've been working on. That's pretty much all PSA. And yeah, they have things they need to address with some of their platforms. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, there's very few companies that are willing to, and frankly, they can do this because they have the capital and they have because they're owned by a hedge fund group, so they have a little bit of money behind them, to be frank. But they have the resources and just basically the willingness to experiment, and that's something that is in very short supply in the industry nowadays. Like honestly, with the exception of a couple small, like you think like there's a couple companies that are a little more fast and loose with how they kind of put out stuff. I'm looking at you, Bond Arms and Lone Star.
Don't even start.
Yeah, we don't. Those companies are their own thing. Or Caltech, the Floridian cocaine.
Yeah, actually,
industry is
speaking of
really-
which, I'm surprised Keltec didn't really do much
Oh,
this
they
year. I don't think they did
didn't
anything
do
this
a
year,
lot.
right?
I think they had a pistol that came out. I really can't, and that's the thing. Here's a point to be made. They did release a pistol, I'm pretty sure, but I cannot for the life of me remember what it is. Hi guys, it's Tac Racc in the future. Just wanted to throw this in here really quick. So, Keltec actually released a new sub 2K like 6 days before SHOT Show. I just didn't see it because I haven't seen anything about it online. Here's the thing. That thing solved the biggest problem that sub 2Ks had with how they folded. Now it kind of opens up and twists sideways and folds down, so you can mount optics on it. That's a little bit of a sidebar. I just wanted to throw that in there because Keltec has done a few things. That's actually pretty cool, and I'm very excited about that. Okay, on with the podcast.
Huh.
And that's a sign. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, Keltec. These we expect these guys to be just out there, and they're just not this year, which is fine. I mean, I get it. You can't be world beaters every year, but back to the point, Palmetto has been for the last couple of years at least.
Yeah.
They had the STG 44 last year that kind of took the show by storm. This year, they had the M&P 7.
Well, it sounds like that you're meat riding them right now. So with that in mind, I want to hear what you think about their what was it, the egg?
Yeah, the X57 was actually the gun I was referring to earlier. Like I said, I've never really shot anything chambered in 5.7. I don't know a whole lot about 5.7, but I really like the look and the coolness of the H&K MP7. And so I really am glad that Palmetto was like, you know what? We got MP7 at home. Here you go. So I'm excited. Will I get one? Maybe, probably, hopefully, but compared to the Tommy built MP7 that they announced this year, I think PSA did the right thing by chambering it in 5.7, modeling it after the 5.7 handgun they put out last year, and it's unique enough to where it's not directly an MP7 clone, but I embrace. That's all I'll say.
I mean, I think there's definitely a market for PDWs right now too, especially braced PDWs, which looks like they're doing that with the
Yeah.
X57. But yes, I don't like the. I'm not a huge fan of the 5.7 caliber, but I wish, in all reality, I get that they based it off their 5.7 Rock like a little bit.
Yeah.
If they put that thing out, and I know the original's not in 9mm, but if they put that thing out in 9mm, you know how fast I would buy that thing? Like, it would be insane.
And being that PSA listens to their consumers, I think they're probably working on it, I would say.
Yeah.
I can't say for
they
sure,
will, okay.
but I'm sure they're already working on a more pistol caliber PDW. Now, I do have a question, though. It does look like the X57 has a little bit of a rail on the front. Do you think you could chamber the new thumper on it? Or mount the new thumper on it?
You know, if there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, I know.
And for those of you following along at home, the thumper, that's another thing I was going to bring up, because that's grenade launchers are not really. It's kind of a niche thing. You know, people have the can launchers and stuff that they outfit with certain things they can buy from a roadside shop in the Midwest that is made out of silicone and fire at certain people they don't like. Look that up from the memes. I'm not going to describe that on here, but you know, it's cool. Once again, they're innovating where a lot of people haven't lately. Putting out a 37 millimeter flare launcher, who does that? You know what I mean? It's like, where does that come from? It's just, it's so. I think it's cool.
Why?
Probably,
there's no reason to do it other than just because.
Because they can.
Yeah, because it's cool.
I just think that's cool. No, I think you could definitely mount that or any number of, well,
Underbarrel
not
things.
any number, because it's a pistol. You can't have anything that's angled to 90 degrees. Remember, kids, don't get arrested by the ATF.
So dumb.
So I had to kind of stop myself there. You know, there's probably a whole bevy of things you could put on that thing to make it you know, a little more memey.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about the size of it, because from what I've seen, it looks monstrous.
The thumper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're.
It's a little
I think they're going for a classic M203 look. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator vibes.
No, I do completely agree. It's a little chonky.
Yeah.
It's they have it at SHOT Show. It looks like they had it on one of those kind of old Knights Armament style quad rails that kind of went around the front sight post. Which which admittedly, if they wouldn't have done it in tan and put an EOTech on it, they could have done this better. But like, admittedly, that has some crazy retro drip. I'm not gonna lie.
Not as much as if they put an actual cheese grater on it, but you know,
exactly.
It is what it is.
But you know, it's pretty cool. That thing is huge. Another thing that PSA put out, basically, this is what it looks like. I'll describe it to you guys and see what you think. I don't know if you've seen this yet. So, have you ever heard of the Springfield Hellion? It's basically a Croatian VHS that got imported to the United States.
Yes.
You guys seen those?
Yeah.
What if I told you Palmetto's making one, basically, more or less?
They're getting in the bullpup game. Yep.
Yeah.
Is it it's modeled on their new platform, right? The Jackal. It's their new bullpup Jackal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the Auckland. It looks it's obviously based on their Jackal platform.
Yeah.
But when I would be lying if I didn't say it looked very similar to a Springfield Hellion.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of excited about. I think bullpups, the triggers are weird. Kind of it's something that's people have been trying to kind of catch on for a while. I think that's really cool though. I think there's potential for that to be a bigger share of the market, especially as they get lower in price, and this will be the ticket for that. I think in the short term.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah, the Jackal's just a good idea. You know, it's very versatile. It seems like they're finding all kinds of different ways to mount those upper receivers on as many different types of lowers as they can. So,
yeah,
I think they might be onto something with the Jackal.
Yeah, no, I think they are. All right, and then my last one. I promise we're almost done with PSA. Yeah, so there's two guns that Palmetto's really kind of came out with, and they're it's kind of a blanket thing, and I'll explain in a second. That are kind of both of a similar idea, but it's something we haven't really seen out of the industry a ton of in more of a consumer place. It's usually more of like a high end customizable thing, and that's modular built guns outside of like an AR-15 or like an AR platform or style of gun. They have the 570. It's kind of a mix between like a Remington 870 and like a Mossberg 590. It's a pump gun. Has a bunch of different stocks you can put on it. At the show, they had Magpul pump shotgun furniture, which looks great. That's probably what I would run on it, anyways. Has a big, chonky kind of Mossberg style safety selector on the back. Looks like the slide release is a big, huge button on the side.
Yeah, which I really like. I hate having to rotate my whole wrist to open the slide. So putting it right there, I'm surprised no one's done it, yet. So good on them for thinking of that.
Well, that's the thing. It's something that's really it's once again they're kind of innovating where a lot of people haven't. I mean, I love my Mossberg 930, my shotgun. But that shotgun, I mean, it's a semi-auto. I've really kitted it out. I've made it nice. But that shotgun's very similar to when it came out. It's very similar to shotguns that have been around since almost World War II, in terms of form factor, a little bit in terms of function. But here we have, they're pump shotguns, but they have these controls that are big and kind of more tactile. In the case of the 570, we have optics cuts on these guns for red dots. I mean, the whole silhouette of them they're a little more angular, a little more. I think they're going to be a little more ergonomic. Yeah, I was really excited when I saw that coming out because it's kind of the next evolution of the tactical shotgun. I think a little bit is what Pema is doing, and once again, that modularity, be able to customize what grips you have on it, what barrel clamps, whatever. I think they called the line in their video, it was like the build it yourself shotgun line. So it sounds like they're going to have it so it comes in kits too, so you can like assemble it at home, which will drive the price down a little bit more as well. So that's, I think, really exciting. And another kind of part of that is what they're calling the emerge bolt action. Palmetto's getting to the bolt gun gang, which is really cool. This is going to be once again a Remington design based on the Remington 700. Once again, very customizable, has some more modern features on once again what's been a very tried and true design. And it looks like it's going to have some more premium features that you'd see on really, really high-end bolt guns at that closer to Palmetto price. So yeah, I don't know what you guys' thoughts on those, but I've seen those and I've gotten really excited about those. I think that's going to be something that's going to be really positive for the industry.
Yeah, hopefully other manufacturers will start following suit and coming up with options that people actually want to see and not just variations of something that's been around already.
Yeah, so there's a lot of guns that were really exciting from SHOT Show. As I've been absolutely gushing about, I think Palmetto's been really killing it lately. It's going to be exciting to see what kind of comes of all that. There was a lot of gear that came out that's also very exciting. I know Memester, you had some things that you were really excited about talking about. You want to run us through those?
Yeah, so I saw these brand new binoculars, and they were pretty cool to me. Now, this product has probably been around for some time, and I haven't heard about it or seen it yet, but they are from Swarovski, paired with Vizio, and these particular binoculars are powered through AI. And the cool thing about them is that whenever you're looking through them, it can actually identify different species of birds and even some mammals. So it can tell you about them. And along with that, the binoculars compare to your phone, either iOS or Android, and it can give you more uh, information that way. And along with that, it could even take some photos while you're looking at birds and whatnot.
Now here's a question. You might know this. Does it identify blue helmets as well?
Although they are an endangered species that we're trying to eliminate, I don't think that it can.
Oh, that's a shame.
Quick side note about the blue helmets, just since you mentioned it. This doesn't necessarily need to stay in this episode, but I've been doing some work for a future video on my personal channel and learning about the civil war in Yugoslavia back in the 90s. Like, the UN got so involved, and they basically at one point were like, hey, here's a suggestion in our opinion of how you guys can fix things up. And the people in Yugoslavia were like, no, we don't, we'll figure it out on ourselves. And they're like, okay, fine, then we're just going to start shelling you guys until you say yes.
Really?
Yeah.
They're just like, say less.
Yeah. They're like, oh, you don't want to listen to our options? Okay, well, let's just start hitting you with cruise missiles until you, comply, basically.
I mean, I
Until
think
you
that can
take
still
our
be done.
suggestions.
Exactly. Anyway, well, AI binoculars. AI binoculars is kind of a cool idea, honestly. I hadn't heard much about them. I knew that I had heard about the new Swarovski binoculars, but I guess I didn't look too much into what they were. But that does sound pretty cool for someone who's big into hunting.
I mean, I can't help but think Uncle Ted would be rolling over in his grave at the thought of that. That being said, I think it's cool as hell. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like, oh man, like when at one point are they going to be like, you know what? AI binoculars, that's great. Let's put that in someone's forehead. You
Yeah,
know?
but I mean, also at the same time, how hard is it to look through some binoculars and be like, "Yep, that's a bird."
Well, it can go down to specific breeds and whatnot. Like,
Like
from
it's
what I
a
was reading about it, that you could look through it, and they looked at the Winchester logo, and it actually told them that the species of the breed of horse.
okay.
Uh, yeah.
So it can tell you distinct types of ducks from one from another sort of thing. That's kind of cool.
And along with that, they're looking to advance it even further to even score deer antlers.
Oh
That's
wow.
really cool.
I guess I see the appeal of that then.
Well, it's going to be hitting shelves around February, but it's pretty cheap considering the price. It's only around $5,000.
Pretty cheap.
Pretty cheap, I guess.
Go.
Sure.
Holy mama.
In the same vein of tech and AI and that sort of thing, the new Ace VR app really caught my attention because I've got a MetaQuest 2. I really like doing shooting sims and virtual ranges and that sort of thing. So this one looks to be pretty promising. Although I'm not a fan of it having to be like a subscription service, that kind of turns me off. But I like the idea of it at least.
It was a crazy price too, though, wasn't it? It was
It's
like
yeah, it's like 200
300
something a
something.
year. Yeah, but
But
there's a lot of options and perks and whatever. So I guess hopefully it'll turn out to be worth the price. But at the same time, there are other apps out there, other VR experiences that are, from my understanding, pretty comparable. So I'll have to wait and see until it comes out, and figure out if it's really worth what they're saying it is. But
I mean,
it at
that'll be a
least got
good
my
resource.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that'll be a good resource for like I instantly thought of like gun ranges. There was one that went in right next to the town I used to live in, and there's a few out here where I live now
Hmm.
that have been putting in um not necessarily VR, but like they'll put in like the simulators and stuff for gun training. And that's all well and good, but I mean, I can't help but think, instead of having to devote an entire room with a huge screen, for this, how much easier would it be for business people and, places that do training to, just have someone put on a headset. It's probably going to be better quality.
Hmm.
It'll be more tactile for their environment to be able to go into these places on pretty much in real time
Yeah.
and do those scenarios. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a
and
great
and
idea.
to be fair, I mean there is plenty of appeal. So the price very much may end up being totally worth it. But for someone who maybe doesn't have the time or the money to hit the range all the time, or someone who lives in a apartment in the middle of the city where they can't get to a range, I in that respect, it makes a lot of sense for something like that to be available. So and the fact that they're using like a proprietary handgun insert that you actually put the controller in instead of holding the controller itself as the gun to
Yeah.
make it a little bit more realistic, I really do appreciate that at least.
Something I've been noticing a little bit this year. I know there's other companies. I'm just blanking on right now, but I know I read about Dead Air doing this most recently, so I'm gonna bring them up. I've noticed a bunch of 3D printed silencers. It looks like they're using, I cannot remember what metal it is, but yeah, Dead Air's been doing 3D printed silencers and 556. There's been a few 22 silencers about. I think it's titanium in some regard how they 3D print it, but
Mhm.
Just
It's like
something
titanium infused filament or something like that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
something like that. But the point is like that's something that people have been kind of wondering about for a while because like I think it's become pretty apparent that until 3D printers greatly improve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking like how they are like, oh, they're getting a little better, it'll just, level out my stage. Like I'm talking like, another generation of 3D printers. I don't think we're going to realistically see like 3D printed guns to the level that we're seeing consumer grade firearms at anytime soon. And that's always been the worry of people is like, oh, ghost guns. Yeah, they're out there, but they're not amazing.
They're not good enough to really be worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
the strongest you'd realistically be able to have reliably in a 3D printed gun is maybe 9mm. You might,
Yeah.
You can get by with a 22 or something smaller, but when you start getting up into bigger calibers or rifle rounds, you might be able to get a couple shots out, but it's not really, like you said, it's not been perfected yet. The idea is there, but
like on the other hand, though, like I remember when 3D printing first came out, I was in my shop class in high school, and I remember it kind of like finally came out for consumers in mass, and I remember sitting there going, man, it'd be great to have a 3D printer so I could just print a part for it, like a motor, and install it, and like I don't have to go to the store, I can just have that ready to go. And that was kind of a fever dream because like, oh yeah, wait, hold up, this is all plastic for now. But now we're finally seeing things to the point where we're having parts printed out that are able to be used on a full auto gun, or I think we're going to start seeing internal parts once those tolerances get better that are going to be 3D printed, and it's just really interesting. Is it like, you wonder, okay, like will I be able to just print out like a trigger group in my in my office instead of having to go clear out to to go to Bass Pro and buy a trigger group.
But then the fear there is, is the Alphabet Boys going to start regulating 3D printers way harder because they're already kind of trying to as it is.
And they could. I think if that ever happens, I think the more realistic thing that they could regulate is the filament types per se.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about that the other day, and it's like, why would you like make a dude that's just buying a 3D printer to make toys?
I just wanted to make a rainbow dragon.
Yeah, well, yeah, some of those dudes, but but you get my point though. It's like I think this is gonna be something that we're gonna see much more common in the future, but it's something that kind of emerged a little more this year that I'm really excited about for sure.
See, I say that sitting right next to my Ender 3 right now, so
yeah, I almost bought an Ender 3.
Yeah,
I might, when I get my tax return, I might buy an Ender. I'm not sure.
Oh fuck! I need to file taxes.
Well, yeah,
just don't.
Oh. Yeah.
Thank you.
They can't arrest us if all of us don't pay our taxes.
Still waiting.
How are they going to pay? How are they going to pay for the police to go get us?
They don't need to buy Hailfire missiles. They can't afford them. One other piece of gear I've seen, once again, another trend that I saw last year that I think has always kind of been out there, but it's becoming more and more a consumer grade thing. Seen a lot more thermal optics coming out. HoloSun, it looks like they kind of perfected theirs a little bit. They also had a couple more optics coming out.
Are they the ones that had that like thermal red dot overlay where you can still see like it's like a sort of IR overlay kind of deal?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Another one HoloSun have is the Ames Max, which I really like. It's kind of it's like a full like reflex red dot. I think it looks cool. Anyways, that's off subject, but like HoloSun's kind of perfecting that. It's becoming... I haven't seen one in person. I'm sure I'll start seeing them eventually, but those are becoming more prevalent. Athlon had a couple, thermal optics coming out. I think if anything, we're going to see a lot of not necessarily like red dots and scopes, but like binoculars, like something that someone can carry on their person.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been something that has been cool to see. I think I wonder when companies like Bushnell, for instance, like some of these lower end companies are going to start coming out with those, and everyone's going to be like, oh, like this is the next big thing, and then all of a sudden you see a bunch of them on like AliExpress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Thermal. Well, not necessarily thermal, but night vision tech at least is starting to become a little bit more consumer friendly. So
I mean, I don't want to have to like sell a kidney and write
yeah,
a mortgage to
yeah.
buy some nods. You know?
I mean, going back to VR, there's actually companies that make little infrared add-ons you can put in just on the side of like an Oculus. And if you turn off the boundary borders, you can use an Oculus as night vision. It's not great, but it's it's an alternative. It's better than nothing. If you already have an Oculus, I wouldn't say buy an Oculus just to use as cheap knockoff night vision. But if you have one already, for an extra $15, you can turn it into a night vision headset.
I mean, that'd be a chonky.
It'd be chonky, yeah. I mean, it
That'd be a
wouldn't be practical for going out into the woods or whatever. But if you're doing CQB in your house, it might be a little bit more worth it.
On the subject of gear, I wonder how many. So I saw this like it was like a Twitter post like a couple months ago. And there's this guy that worked at like Cabela's, and he's or not Cabela's, it's Bass Pro Shop now. I'm so bitter about that. I'm sorry. You will never hear the end of that. He was like working at Bass Pro, and he was like, "Why did I have someone just come up and ask me if this hunting camo is thermal resistant?"
Why do you need to know?
And all of us goons are like, "Oh yeah, we know.
Yeah.
Like we get it." Point is, I wonder, especially with, I mean, obviously, law enforcement, National Guard, whoever, they all have that's, they all thermal optics already. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder how soon it'll be when like tactical clothing companies. Now, actually, little sidebar. I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory that, like when I go shopping for clothes, like I don't just buy stuff because it's tactical. Like let's be honest, I'm a styling dude. I have good fashion sense. However, I'll be looking through clothes, and like Under Armour is a really good example of this. I'll see their sweatshirts, and like a lot of these people have been buying like the Under Armour Freedom sweatshirts, and they, it says Freedom, it has American flags on it, and they're like, yeah, this is awesome. Then I look at the fabric and see how shiny that fabric is, and I'm like, buddy, that's gonna light you up like a Christmas tree on thermals. So like my conspiracy theory, and tell me if I'm crazy, is that some of these companies are like contracted by the government to make like these clothes that probably are catering to this certain demographic that realistically may
Tactical clothes that are going to make them way easier to see.
Yeah, these people that realistically may very well be spotted on thermal scopes eventually. I'm not saying anything. You know what I'm trying to say though.
Sure.
But like,
I'd like for you to spell it out for me.
What do you mean?
I should. But yeah, like I wonder if that's like a thing, because I've been seeing that a lot, and it's like, ooh, like that Condor sweatshirt's awfully shiny, man.
Yeah.
Back to the point though, I wonder how soon it's gonna be until tactical clothing companies go, hey,
Thermal resistant.
Yes, because we're thermal resistant. Yeah. Like,
The best way to have an idea come to fruition is to do it yourself.
You're not wrong, but here's the thing: I don't have a warehouse full of little ladies on sewing machines to make clothes for me, so I don't think I'd be able to hook you up, but I would love to. Not me making a sweatshop joke. Yeah, anyways, what other gear have you guys seen that you're excited about? Honestly, for me at least, I'll give you guys some time to think. Last year was kind of my like year for like, oh, this is awesome for gear. Like we had the Magpul DACA stuff come out. I have been a huge proponent of that. I have that in my case. Love it. But like I don't like besides optics and stuff, it doesn't seem like there's been a ton of stuff that has come out that's really like, whoa, this is new, unless I kind of missed a few things.
I can't think of any other gear that I saw that really piqued my interest.
Last year I feel like was kind of the year where a lot of gear came out that I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Like Magpul is a company I'm very invested in at this point, because I have a lot of their gear. I use their stuff, and they came out with some really cool things last year. They had different accessories that were kind of a new thing. Their whole DACA system for cases was like, whoa, that's new. And I bought into that pretty soon after it came on the market, and I love my DACA grid in my Pelican. But like this year, all the stuff they released, it felt a little safe, if anything. I mean, they always do their product releases the week before SHOT Show. That's just how they do. That's how they do their releases. And like the most notable thing they had was a transparent PMAG. I think it was like, okay, that's fine, but like, why aren't we doing EMAGs like everyone wants? Why aren't we doing straight 20s like everyone wants? And they're like, okay, well that's fine, but we have the PMAG. They're drippy. That's great. I'm like, okay, well I already have Lancers, so I don't need that. And they're like, okay, well that's great. Well, how about a metal mag for the P320? And it's like, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
Like why? We want the FDP. We don't want this stuff. We don't want another carbine, stock like they released. We want, our old school stuff. We want, like I thought, like for a little while, I thought there was gonna be a day we'd start seeing pistol lowers made by Magpul. It just hasn't happened. It's just like, what is going on?
Honestly, I'm surprised that they never went anywhere with the FMG9.
Yeah, well, I think. See, and they said last year they were gonna release, like the FDP. They said they're gonna release it, and it was like, okay, cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
And no, Zev never really released it, and we're like, okay, we're still waiting. It came out, and what game was that? Modern Warfare 3 was like the first time we ever saw one of those, or Modern Warfare 2.
I think it was 3.
Like, yeah, it's like, guys, this is like think of the market we're in right now, and like the climate we're in. We were just talking about this, PDWs, pistol caliber PDWs. There it is, and it's like, they're like, yeah, we don't really feel like it. It's just like,
and now they're too far behind. I think
exactly.
too many people have brought him out. Well, and that was the thing, because like the FMG9 was one of the first like compact pistol caliber carbine PDWs, and they just never went anywhere with it, and so then everyone else started making one, probably primarily because they came up with the idea first.
Yeah. Nah, it's just it seems like this year I think the big stuff has been squarely, like there was some cool tech things and some cool gear things, don't get me wrong, but I think by and large most of what we saw that was like, oh, this is going to be a really big thing going forward. And who knows, maybe T-Mags will take off, and that'll be like the new thing that we'll see, and no one will have P-Mags in 5 years. Who knows? But I think our like on the firearm side is where we saw a lot more innovation, which I'm kind of disappointed. I really wanted to see some kind of outlandish gear, maybe a new sling system, or some throwback military stuff that's kind of modernized. Like what I think would be really cool is if, and like there's been some companies that have done this a little bit, but their stuff is so damn expensive. Like you can't afford this stuff. To take like an Alice rig, or like some old school Vietnam era gear or Cold War gear, and pretty much retain. And I would buy this instantly. Pretty much retain the form factor, but modernize it, make it so it's out of new Cordura stuff, and put it on the market. That kind of gear, that kind of throwback style gear, because people already want it. Like you can't go to a surplus store without like nothing's there anymore, because people all scoop that stuff up. That would take hold of the gun industry, like the CIA putting crack into Compton. Like it would occupy all of our minds, and nothing else. I think. Like,
I have honestly long thought that, like, why has nobody really gotten into remaking, retro remakes, or like you're saying, just it seems like no one's really done it, and I don't understand why, because like you said, there'd be a huge market for it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, PSA, go back to them, they're making an STG 44, so You know,
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a little bit more niche, but stuff like that. Just because I've always wanted someone to start remaking C96 broom handles, but that's a big that's a big chunk of metal, so
That's a
it
big
probably
yeah.
wouldn't be, you know, it probably wouldn't be cheap. That's for sure.
Can you imagine a broom handle though? Like like Ruger's bringing back the Mark One 22 pistol, by the way, which
Hmm.
looks very similar to a Luger. That's not a broom handle, but it's can you imagine though, like a box mag broom handle in 22 long that
Oh,
takes like a Ruger 1022 mag or
oh,
something like that? How crazy awesome that would be!
it'd be so cool.
It was so nice, and to beat a dead horse, I've said this a little bit. Palmetto kind of, and you said this too. I mean, Palmetto bringing back those old designs, it and the hype that was brought up because of that. Because like in all reality, the MP7, right?
Hmm.
That's not a new design. It's modern looking, and like yeah, it has like a nice like Radiant Raptor charge handle and stuff. But that's kind of a throwback a little bit, and
Yeah, I
like
mean it's what at this point a 24-year-old design.
yeah, it's not a new idea. But the fact that people are so hyped for this kind of stuff, and the fact that like AKs are becoming a way bigger thing than they have been in the past.
Hmm.
You know, I really do think the industry should look to the past and go, you know what? So like yeah, innovate, and I've been talking about innovation all throughout this podcast, but at the end of the day, we really should look back on some of this old stuff and go, okay, what works and what do people want? Because a lot of people want this old stuff because it still works. So
I want someone to remake the Bergman Bayard 1895.
I don't even know what that is.
It's the pistol that the Mandalorian uses.
Pulled up. Jamie pulled up video. Bergen
Bergman Bayard. I think it's the 1895.
1895. Oh, that's kind of cool.
It may not be the 95.
No, you're right. It was the 1910. It looks like, but still, that's sick.
Yeah,
Oh no, the one the Mandalorian uses is 1896. It looks
it's
like
in 96. Okay.
that's sick though.
Why has no one remade the Mars pistol? Yeah,
No,
it's a weird gun, but it's just and like I said, I know that there would be a very very small market for remaking weird old guns from 100 years ago, but it'd still be cool. That's all.
I think in certain calibers and types, people would buy them. I'm and that's the thing. There's certain companies that are really killing it with these, like you know, all the power to them for making like a Glock 19 Gen 3 clone or
Hmm.
17 Gen 3 clone. But when every single company makes one, like at this point, it's like okay, Palmetto made the Dagger series, and you had Stoger making theirs, and you had at this point there's dozens of companies that make Glock 19 clones or 17 clones, and it's like okay, we get it, but it's been done well to the point where it's like we don't need any more. Make something
It's
else.
like, oh look, another Glock clone.
Yeah. So yeah, who knows? We might see a little bit of a reversion to the old. That's kind of reflected in the 2011 wave
Yeah,
of stuff that's coming out. But
I mean, let's just take it all the way back and start remaking the Borchardt C93.
yeah, just go crazy nuts.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, gentlemen, we've been going for about an hour and a quarter. Do you guys have any other? We probably cap it off here so we don't make everyone just fall asleep.
Yeah.
You guys have any closing thoughts? Any remarks on Shot Show and the state of the industry? Or are we good to go?
I mean, I'll just say I'm excited for what the next 2-3 years are going to have.
Mm.
I like that people are coming up with good ideas, coming out with new innovative products, and yeah, I'm optimistic.
Memester.
Memster's got no comment.
Yeah, I've got nothing.
You got nothing? Come on, you got to give us something. You got to have some sort of closing comment.
I don't think I do. I did not follow the show this year whatsoever. Frankly, I didn't even know that it went on.
Well,
Listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just a nerd. Well, with that being said, you guys, it's been a pleasure having you on. I really enjoyed researching this episode.
Hopefully, you guys get a little bit out of it. Just keep your head on a swivel. See what kind of takes hold in the industry. Watch some. If anything from this new stuff, the best thing I can recommend is watch some YouTube videos beforehand. Make sure the stuff works, because as we saw last year with the Henry Rancher or Homesteader, excuse me, that was something we were all like, oh, that's pretty cool, and then it just didn't work. So the point is, do your research before you buy this new stuff, but also be very excited about it. But y'all, thank you so much for listening. We all had a great time recording this episode. Be sure to listen on YouTube or Spotify, wherever your listening pleasure takes you, and have a good rest of your night. This was TAR News signing off.
Bye.
See ya.
See you.